Hey, welcome back to another tutorial. So in this one, we're going to actually get into some of the material parameters and look at how these affect materials really, and how they, or should I say, how they affect surfaces inside of 3ds Max. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll select this material that I made earlier on. Let's use the utilities here and we'll reset that material editor slot. So it's just back to normal for us. What I'm going to do is I'll set up a very small scene. You're more than welcome to follow along, or again you could just take this as a lecture and then attempt to apply it in your own way. So I'm going to use Alt W just to expand our view here. So we've got a nice large viewport. I'm going to use a geosphere. Let's just drag that geosphere out. I'm then going to use a plane. I'm just going to hold Control, click and drag this out. So we've got a nice large plane there. I'm going to use the move tool. Whoops. So I don't want to select that. I want to select my sphere. So I'm just going to bring that up just so we've got something to sort of look at really. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure render setup. I'm going to make sure we're in Arnold. So I want to be using Arnold renderer. And in the sample and ray depth, I've got my preview set to 0. If your computer is you might struggle if you start to struggle with this part, what you can do is you can drop these samples down, and that way it'll speed up your render. I'm going to keep mine at 0 and see what I get for this. Okay, I'm going to close that off. What we should be able to do is jump into default shading. Maybe I'm telling fibs. Standard shader, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the ActiveShade using Arnold. So I'm going to click that one, and you'll see my scene starts to do a bunch of stuff. It's starting to build that image. So this will give us more sort of accurate lighting representations for when we're messing with the material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a material onto this to assign it, and then we can drag one onto the floor as well. And I think it's probably worth putting an Arnold light in here as well, because the materials do interact sort of with Arnold lights. So I'm going to click the light bulb, and what I'll do is I'll add a Arnold light, and you'll see my scene goes pitch black, which is absolutely fine because we're only now emitting light from this area. So let's just bring this to about here, and what I'll do is I'll look to rotate this just ever so slightly, perhaps not rotate. It's a targeted map, so we'll target it light, should I say, target on this sphere. Right, okay, so the previewer, Arnold ActiveShade, what it does is basically it allows you to preview your results or preview a version of the final render. It's really good for sort of building scenes, materials, when you want to test lighting, but you don't want the computational power to be zapped out during this process or the renders, or have to render a sequence and come back and find out that actually something's not actually that well lit. So it's a really effective one to sort of utilize. In addition to that, again, you can set the settings here as well. So in the render view, you can come into the settings for Arnold. So make sure you're in Arnold renderer, make sure it's set here. And then what you can do in the sample setting here, you can lower this down. So what you can do in the preview, because that's what we're in, a preview mode, we can lower it down and lower that overall quality. But again, I think for me, I'm okay where I am. I do believe this will be fine for me. So that'll be down to your system itself. Now, when I say system, obviously your hardware, should I say. Okay, so now let's get into actual material. So I've got a material on the ball, and I've got a sphere, and I've got one for the floor. We'll have a look here. So the first thing that we want to do, let's go to base parameters. Now in the base color and reflections, you've got a bunch of different options in the first section. You've actually got the base color value. You've got the weighted base color as well. You've got the actual color, so what the object holds itself. I suppose the pigmentation of the object would be held here. So if we click this one, and we click to make this blue, you'll see my ball, it'll change to blue. Again, You've got the roughness values here. So what we could do, you know, you could look to increase those roughness values, and you see you'll lose quite a bit of that sort of shine there. So this will control that roughness overall. Now there's a few different things that you can sort of do in here, because you've got metallicness as well, which works slightly different to the roughness. So if we put a metallic on here, this sort of absorbs much of the light. So if you see the actual way this is being lit now, well, I suppose it's not absorption, but it becomes so reflective. It's actually reflecting the background, whereas the roughness, this is it's quite glosser, I suppose would be the term. But you know, the roughness would control this glossy to a degree. So if you know click this 0.5, you can sort of see that where you'll get a reduction in that. And again, this is all based upon what type of material you're creating. At the moment, we're just looking at the effects of these. So let's head that back to 0. Now, in addition to that, you've got the coating parameters. So the coating parameters actually sit on top of an existing material, a little bit like the stack here. So think of this as maybe you've got a good wood texture, and you know you want to give the effect of it being varnished and have something brushed over the top. This is where you could do that. Stuff like maybe glass and things like that, super effective. And again, we can look at the effects of this. So if we crank this up, maybe the clear coating effect to 1, you'll see already it starts to change. So let's just have a look at what's going on here. So it's already starting to change. So if I just grab this and I move it down, there's a slight coloration there. Change. So what we'll do is we'll set this to 1, and I'm going to change the color. Let's put it for something ridiculous like green, just so we can try and see a differentiation. Let's maybe red. There we go. Red's a little bit better. So you can see here with a very strong value, what it's done, it's applied that red. Now with this red color, it's not the actual color here. This color isn't coming through. It's applied to the object, but it still has that transparency to it. So the blue, what it's doing is combining the red, or overlaying this red on top of the blue. And as I said, it's a really effective technique for when you want to create that surface detail. You can lower this down as well. So you know, if we did do 0.5, you'll see much more of the blue comes through. But what's really cool is there are glints and tints of red. You can actually see it in here. So if we again have a look, you can sort of see those tinges a bit. Now, in addition to that, you have got the actual value here as well. So let's crank this up just to see what we can get. So you can see this, where this now becomes like super reflective almost. You know, if you turn this down, that clear coat layer on top, let's do 1.2, it's going to be less sort of reflective. Now the idea is that detail underneath is still going to be present to some degree, so you'll still be able to see your map types underneath while this is overlaid, and obviously it'll give you varying effects. In addition to that, you've got the effects underlying color. So how much the clear coat affects, so you know whether it casts light or there's light bounce onto the artifacts or the parameters underneath. So if we turn this down, it'll have no effect at all underneath. Okay, so it'll just literally be on its surface area. You can also plug roughness maps in. So we've got a roughness value here. We can change this, and this will only apply to the coating layer. So let's again, let's just crank this up. You can sort of see this now where the roughness has been cranked up, and do 0.2, and then we've got this sort of like sphere with sort of a reddish tint here and there to it. Now, if we come down here to the base color and reflections, what we can do is we can put base weight map in here as well. And what this will do is it'll extract the color variation out. So it's keeping this black value, but it's extracted the yellow, and it sort of applies. Now, with the clear coat, you can sort of see that reflectivity now cast in here. So it's sort of I've got that nice reflectivity. And again, if you're creating bottles, glass, maybe even car paint and stuff as well, this is something you're probably going to want to sort of experiment with. You can plug in custom roughness maps as well. So what you can do in here, you can click the roughness map. We can use something called a bitmap, okay? And a bitmap is essentially a pixelated map that you can bring in. So I'm going to just navigate to this folder here. I've got a few map types that I can throw on. I'm not too fussed about whether they're seamless or not for this demonstration. But you can see now where you can control the roughness of the clear coat through that actual map itself, which is pretty cool. In addition to that, you can also have an additional roughness map on the base color itself as well. So what we can do is we can click this. Let's add another bitmap, and you'll see we'll get another value. So let's change this up. Maybe we're going to add something like this underneath. And now we'll have two map types. We've got two different roughness types being applied to this sphere, this object, which is really good. And again, you know, you can reduce this the actual coating value down itself. So you know, we can do this at maybe 1.2, and more of that map sort of show through, and you can see that reddish tinge is sort of coming back now a little bit more. So to reduce that area down of the red, again, just crank this value up. So let's maybe go for about 2.5, because 5 are quite strong. It's not bad. Yeah, so again, you can really play around with these. If at any point you wanted to change the color underneath, you know, you can switch those colors out, and you're free to sort of change these and make them into whatever material you want. Now, if you had a full texture, so something that you've made in maybe Substance Designer, or you've been in Photoshop and you've done a bit of photo editing, and you wanted to bring in the full texture without it extracting any information, sort of the color information, what you would do in that case is you'd load a bitmap into our channel here on the right hand side. So we click this one, and I'm going to use the shape map again, and we're just going to populate that in there. You can see you get that sort of thingy. I'm going to bring up as well the material map browsers, just so we're not jumping about in between the material here. So this is actually the bitmap parameters for it. So that should have loaded in for us. If we just jump back to the default map, so you can do it either by clicking default here, or you know, if you're inside here, you can click on this material here. Now with that, let's just clear this one. You'll see it doesn't have too much an effect. But what the difference here, the key difference here, is this is your full texture map. So this is a full texture map. So whatever detail you've got on. So in our case, this texture, it's got you know, yellow line to it, or yellow tint to the color, and it has this logo on. That's what you're going to see. So whether it's bricks, grass, whatever you've made, if you're working with the physical materials, then what you would do is you add that there. Alternatively, if you just want a particular detail, so for instance, you know, we want this logo here, we can just grab that from that value, and we should be able to change that color and sort of tweak it, and it should maintain its detail. So you can see there. So it's super handy really in terms of what we want to create and sort of what we can use it for. So different types. Now the roughness for this is affecting, so it is actually affecting this roughness map here. So despite the value being set so low, it should be calculated through this map. And again, you can clear that off, and you can see there where we get a super rough map. If we press Ctrl Z and just populate this back in, you can see the difference. So you've almost got like 2 layers of reflections to this material, which is again pretty cool. Let's just move down. So we've got something that's a little bit more expensive. So we've got transparency. Yeah, with transparency, you know, if we crank this up all the way and I click enter, we get a transparent sphere. Now at the minute, my render settings are a little bit low, so it's not gonna, it won't look how it would look in a final render. It's going to do the best job it can do with it, but it's not going to be a fully fledged sort of render at the moment. So and you can see here, these are quite expensive because it's actually it's building all these light calculations up. You know, we can lower the value a little bit, and you can see where you can give things a slight transparency. And what you can see with this now is the clear coat layer is actually coming through a lot more, and you've got that gradual gradient effect from sort of the main base color, which is green, to this red sort of tinge. So the base, the coating parameters here work really well with the transparency, and you can get some really nice sort of lighting effects when you're sort of messing around with these. Again, you can plug map types into here. They'll work the same way as what you would do here. For a total alpha map, if you like, what you would do is you plug it in this channel here. So what we could do is we can grab this. Maybe we'll bring in a custom bitmap. Again, we're just going to borrow some maps that I made for my ZBrush scenes in a different set of tutorials. And then what we can do, we can just grab something that's kind of black and white. Like, we'll grab this one. We'll just see the effects. You can see there where we're getting those effects sort of coming through, and vice versa. You know, you can bring this in. We can just do a swap. So I can just drag that and do a swap. Perhaps this one's not the best map to use. But moving on, you can click thin wall as well. So at the moment, with this, if I click this, what it'll do is it'll create the effect of a very thin piece of glass. Okay, so that'd be something like maybe what you would see in a cup or a wine glass or something like that. Alternatively, you can control the depth of this, the transparency. So with the depth, you know, 0.5, you know, this is sort of thickening the glass or the glass effect up. So each will give you sort of a different output and a different effect, depending on what it is you want to achieve. If it's a window, obviously, they're not too thin. They're going to be thicker, especially on the new double glaze type. So you're going to want to sort of set these within the parameters of, I suppose, with glass, of what you would like it or whereabouts you would like it to be. You know, so again, sometimes it's best to experiment with these things and sort of go through, just tweaking them. There are alternatives as well. I'm going to come up to the finishes in a bit. I'm just going to take you through a couple more things on here. In addition to that, we've got the color as well. So the color, you can actually change the color of the glass, and you can see here where it's having a big impact. Now, one of the most notable things that you can see is the actual shading here is reflective, or should be reflective, of the sort of color you're sort of experimenting with. So you can see here where I'm now getting this nice sort of cast off of the blue. So that is sort of an indication that this is sort of maybe a tinted blue glass, and it's giving you that color in the values in the shadow, because when the light's casting through, it's carrying that color onto this surface here, and it's actually doing a decent job of bouncing around. So this will give you sort of a more believable look. You can, again, just leave it to its default setting, so you can have it just as it is. You know, you can try an experiment. Maybe you don't want things too much, but you can sort of see the effects there now. Let's just bring this over here a little bit so you can sort of see that tint there. So that's pretty good. And again, to create those atmospheric effects, you know, you want, maybe you've got this glass and whatever reason it's glowing up or whatever, you know, you can sort of cast that light and get that light bouncing around there, and sort of casting that shadow here. So it's super effective. Okay, so in addition to that, we've got subsurface scattering. So this is the light that gets scattered about beneath a surface area. Typically, you would use this with sort of like, most notably, or maybe if you look this up online, it's used quite a lot with characters, especially on the ears, the face area, sort of those softy, more fleshier bits. In addition to that, I mean, you could try it with sort of this. I mean, let's have a look. We'll see if we can get maybe a blue light bouncing around or something. And then, you know, we can try and just crank the value up all the way. And you can actually see, it is actually putting a little bit of blue. It's a bit grainy on here, but it is actually putting a bit of blue. You've obviously got the scatter color as well there. But typically, again, you know, often you probably more or less see these with characters. Usually they have like multicolored maps and stuff as well, which are pretty cool to use. Another maybe good example would be sort of a candle. So candles tend to be they're not translucent fully, but they do have an element of translucency, especially when the wax gets warm. So this is something that you would use during that time. I'm just going to switch this off for now, because we can have a look at setting up some proper materials a little bit later on. And then, yeah, we've got the emission section. So the emission is the amount of self-illumination a object has. So what we would do with this is we'd give it a color. And you can see here now where that's a self-illuminating object. It's glowing up, and it's actually doing some stuff to the scene as well. So again, quite helpful. You know, it's quite good. Really good for effects. So, you know, maybe a sun or sort of a bulb effect or something where you want to communicate sort of a brighter surface area. You can control the luminance as well here, so you can actually change those values a little bit, but overall you can sort of see that casting now around the sort of scene. Having that effect. You can control it via maps as well, so you know, don't forget, each one of these you can plug maps into, and they will affect the outcome. Now, while you're working with physical materials, in addition to that, you do have presets. They do come shipped with some presets. So what you can do in here, you can click on the finishes, and you've got all these options for different finishes that you might want. So for example, maybe you want a rubber type material, and this will do its best to represent that, and it should have the values, so you can see it's wiped all my settings and my values that I had previously, and what it's got now is the settings to represent rubber. There's a bunch of these in here. So again, glossy paint, for example, so you can get a glossy paint, and there are also glass as well. So we're speaking about glass, whether it's thin, solid, or frosted glass. So let's have a look at that thin glass. So you can see here where it's super transparent, and then we've got the solid glass a little bit thicker, where it's not as transparent, perhaps a bit more sort of reflective there. So that's you know, solid piece. Maybe best example that I could think, maybe a marble or something like that. It's a solid ball of glass, and then you know, we've got frosted glass as well. Now with the frosted glass, you can sort of see it's got the clear coat, you've got the transparency, and there's that element of subsurface scattering in there as well, and you know, you've got this depth sort of set as well. So the parameters change. It might be worth as well, if you're ever trying to tweak and make some parameters yourself, you know, for some custom materials, always look back at sort of the defaults here, which is pretty good. In addition to that, yeah, there's quite a lot. You know, you've got rough concrete. There's quite a lot of examples that you can pick from, and you can use quite quickly in scenes as well. So you know, you can drag them onto scenes. You know, if you do a bit of UV in and stuff like that a little bit later on, if we've got time to fit it in the course, you can do sort of like different things, and you can get some really good results. In addition, you can combine these with custom settings as well. So don't forget, you know, we've got, you know, in here, we've got the roughness value, or we've got the refractions and stuff, you know, cranked up. And what you can do is we can actually tweak those values. Perhaps I'll just tweak this one so it's a solid color, and you can tweak those values, and you can make things more glossy. You can see here where this is getting more glossy. You know, you can give it like different effects and different looks, perhaps depending on what it is your outcome is. You know, we've got this, I suppose it's not concrete now, it's like a really scuffed sort of metallic looking object. So there's different ways that you can combine these settings with the presets as well. Now the good thing is when you click off here and you click back on, these will reset for you, so they should be at the default, so you can continue to use different material types. And that's, I suppose, it for the physical materials. There is a lot more complexity to these materials, so there's a lot more elements to them. You've got different map types that you can put in. You can bring in your custom maps, and there's different maps here. Now, note that on these here, you can access much of these. You can access up here. So you can actually get these maps, and you can actually access them up here. And they've got different sorts of things where you can tick on and off. So here I've just ticked off the emission. So if we did have an emission map in there, or emission color, it's not going to show through. So there's different things that you can do with it. There is different modes as well, so you got classic and advanced, but we'll save that for another day. I'm going to wrap things up on the video here. I'm just conscious that the timing's getting a little bit long on it, but what I would like you to do, your challenge in a video, is just experiment with some of those material settings, see what you can do like I did. I've pulled in a few maps, created some nice materials. You've got a little render set up there. Perhaps we can do proper renders another time, but have a go at doing that, and what I'll do is I will see you in the next video.